everybody, it's Michael with Bay Area Hiking Guides, giving that information, giving that knowledge to hike with confidence. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the creepy crawlies of the Bay Area. Alright, stay tuned. Hey everybody, so welcome to the video. We're going to be talking about the creepy crawlies of the Bay Area. And we usually have them crawling all over the place, but we've just had some difficulty. I've been going back and forth trying to find them, and had some other people that I know try to look for them as well. You know, so it's just been kind of a battle, but we had all hands on deck on this one, and we finally did get some footage of tarantulas. And as well, we've got the knowledge of the fantastic Tyler is going to tell you more about the tarantulas, because it's always important, as much as we all get stuck in kind of the fear factor of tarantulas and people are scared of it and stuff like that. I know it can be scary, they're big spiders, but it's great to learn more about them and why you really shouldn't be too scared of tarantulas. So I'm going to have Tyler take more about that, and let's go ahead and move on to Tyler.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Yeah, this really is the coolest kind of Halloween story. It has a lot of really wonderful ghoulish and creepy elements, but it might also really encourage us to appreciate the life cycle of these fabulous creatures. So tarantulas, right? The name just inspires fear immediately in a lot of people. They're big and they're hairy and they move really slow. So there's this tendency to figure they must be absolutely deadly. Well, that's actually not the case in California. It's kind of interesting. Our California tarantulas, the bite is really not that much worse than a bee sting. So it's not going to hurt you terribly if they bite you. And here's the best part. They're hardly ever going to bite you. I mean, these are very gentle creatures who have absolutely no interest in humans. They have other things that they're trying to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the fact is, it's really hard to get one to bite you. In fact, I've never heard of anyone being bitten in the wild. The one time that I'm aware of a bite on a human from a tarantula was in a captivity situation at Lindsay Wildlife Experience right here in Walnut Creek. Wonderful museum and hospital for injured and orphaned wildlife. And they had a captive tarantula that they were showing off to a group of kids. It was kind of a school field trip situation. So the docent is holding the tarantula in her hand, and some little kid just whacks the spider on the back immediately. So the spider bit the docent. Of course, we wish it had bit the kid. No, we don't. But I mean, too bad for the docent. But that's really the only situation when they are completely provoked and when they are absolutely terrified that they're in danger, they might bite you. Anytime you encounter one in the wild, all you have to do is stand there and watch them go by and enjoy this beautiful creature. They will have absolutely no interest in you. But the interesting thing is, this is the time of year in September and October, these hot, dry months at the beginning of fall, when in certain areas you will see the tarantulas walking around. There's roads in Mount Diablo where they're known to be crossing these roads. There's other areas in our this open space where you find tarantulas walking around, and that's unusual because typically these are nocturnal creatures. The primary pattern for these animals is to stay in their burrow at night, come out, wander around just a little bit. They don't have very good eyesight, and find some prey, a little grasshopper or some other small animal that they would eat and go back into their burrow. So what the heck are they doing wandering around in the middle of the broad daylight across roads and trails and paths? Well, it's an interesting story about one particular gender of tarantula. Yes, it's the males. It's only the males that you're going to see wandering around in the daytime in these fall months. And that's because they are looking for love. Yes, it's the scent of a woman that is really trying to attract these males to, and the sort of natural signal that they get at a certain point in their life to start wandering around and trying to find a mate. So with males, their whole lifespan is about 6 to 8 years. And during the beginning of that lifespan, the whole time, they are living in their burrow, coming out at night, you know, feeding a little bit on their prey and going back in the burrow. When they reach sexual maturity at about somewhere between 6 and 8 years, this urge to find a mate is so strong, they leave the burrow and they're wandering around all hours, day and night, trying to find a female. And the females are pretty spread out, so sometimes they go very far from their original burrow. And the interesting thing is, when they do finally find this female, the act of love between tarantulas is really not very exciting. the male actually just leaves his sperm on the web on the outside of the female's burrow. And then she comes over and gets it. Now, I don't know the exact mechanism whereby it goes into her body and fertilizes the eggs, but somehow that happens. But he's really not involved. He doesn't get to have much fun, and then he's done. And there is something, this is the first part of the Halloween aspect of it, that's kind of creepy. In some cases, if she's really hungry, or if he's moving kind of slow, or I don't know, maybe she's just bored or ornery, she will eat him. And we know that this happens in other animals in nature too, right? The black widow being the famous one, right? She's named after that aspect. Doesn't happen as often in tarantulas, but yeah, he might get eaten right then and there after he's done his job, biologically speaking. But in most cases, he leaves, she stays there, lays eggs, you know, has the babies, does that whole mother thing, but he's gone. And now the poor guy is miles away from his burrow in most cases. He has really nothing else to do. He's found his mate, so he will just literally wander around the trails, and that's when you might see him. If you're hiking or driving, might see him crossing the road. But the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting colder pretty soon, it's winter, and most cases, the poor guy just freezes to death. He never starts another burrow, he doesn't find another mate, that's the end of his life. So it's kind of sad. If you see one of these tarantulas wandering around, have a little sympathy for the poor guy. Evolutionarily, no longer needed, so you're on your own, kid, and he freezes to death. Unless a predator gets him. Now that's another really good Halloween story. There are a few other predators that might be trying to eat the tarantula, some of the larger birds maybe. But the coolest one, and actually one of the most common predators on tarantulas, is a wasp. But this is not a little wasp. Remember when we were talking about the oak galls and the wasps that make the oak apples, those little tiny wasps, where I was saying how small they are, how harmless they are. Well, this wasp is not small and it's not harmless. The Tarantula Hawk wasp is a big sucker, maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches long for the larger ones. Very shiny black body, big, huge abdomen. I'm sure Michael can put some pictures up of them. And then these wings that are bright amber colored, this wonderful kind of orange-brown color. And as they walk around on the ground, they kind of flick the wings really fast, so it makes them seem even scarier. And this is a wasp where if it did sting you, would not be just like a bee sting. It might be like 20 bee stings all in one place. I mean, it's extremely painful. Fortunately, I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I've heard about this, and I hope that you never have this experience either. I will assure you that, similar to tarantulas, the hawk wasp is not really aggressive. It's not interested in stinging people. So if you see one, same thing, enjoy it, watch it go on its way. It's not looking for you, it's looking for a tarantula. Now, this wasp is still quite a bit smaller than a tarantula, even though it's large for a wasp. So how is it going to kill this tarantula? Well, this is the crazy thing. The ones that are actually out there looking for these tarantulas, they are females. And they have a whole story that they're going to go through. They're not just trying to kill this tarantula for their own food. What they do is they start attacking the tarantula, and the tarantula has a particular structure because it's an older type of spider, by which I mean it's an evolutionary form of spider that developed many, many millions of years ago, so that they cannot move their head. They can't actually turn or rotate their head. And the fangs, where the sting is, where the venom is, are pointing down. So in order for the tarantula to actually go after the wasp, he has to rear up on his hind legs. Well, that's when she's got him, because she comes in with her stinger and stings right there in the center where all the legs come together. That's basically his nerve center. And her venom is incredibly paralyzing. That's its primary function, is that it completely paralyzes him. He cannot move anymore, right? He has to rear up. She stings him in the middle, and now he's completely paralyzed, but still alive. And this is the amazing part. This Tarantula hawk wasp, female, will now drag the body of that tarantula across the ground, and she may be 100, 200, 300 yards away from her burrow, which for a wasp this big is a long distance and an extremely heavy cargo that she's pulling. You can find videos of them dragging the tarantula body over the ground for miles. From her perspective, it would be like miles. She finds that burrow that she originally dug. It's a big hole. She dug it big enough to hold a whole tarantula, and she pulls him down inside this burrow. She's got a paralyzed living tarantula in the burrow, and what does she do? She lays her eggs on the body. Then, in a few days, those eggs hatch, and the larva, the little caterpillar of that wasp, eat the tarantula alive. That's the best, most creepiest part of the whole story. Now, it's not alive much longer once they start eating him. Yes, that is the end of the tarantula, but the point is, by paralyzing him, he's kept fresh, he's kept alive, so that the tarantula meat, if you want to call it that these larvae get to eat, is nice and fresh. And then they pupate, they become adults, they go off and do their thing. So think about the poor tarantula next time you see one. First, it has this terrible reputation of being deadly venomous, which it's not, at least here in California. I will say, in the tropics, in the equatorial areas, there are some of those jungle tarantulas. They will kill you with one bite. Yeah, so you want to be careful about that if you happen to be in Central America, South America. But here in California, it's just not true. They're not dangerous. They're not interested in people, and yet we have this terrible fear of them. And then the poor males, they live, 6 or 7 years, and then they wander around and freeze to death with no other purpose for their life. So have a little care, a little love, a little fellow feeling, we might call it, for your cousins on this planet, the wonderful tarantulas. Gotta love them.
That I'm on Mitchell Canyon Trail right now. That's where I actually got the footage of the tarantula, and the fall colors are fantastic right now. You see them behind me. It's looking really good out here right now, especially in the Mitchell Canyon. I felt so bad. I led 2 hikes on Castle Ridge the last few weeks ago, and we just haven't getting enough fall color there. It's so delayed this time of year. But that being said, Mitchell Canyon is ready to go, which it still continues to look good. Alright guys, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed that. Those tarantulas are so awesome. We ran into that spider hanging out trying to look for a lady to deliver the package. Okay, well thank you so much. Take care. I might even have one around here somewhere. Alright guys, take care. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
No, don't worry, buddy. She'll be waiting.
Where's your delivery? Do you still have your package?